l'enfant Mimi.
Hi, I'm Camille. I'm French, as you can hear. And I've been part of the family for 4 years now. The family is 6 years old, so kind of big work since then. I'm part of what we call the swag team. It's the design team. Before that, I studied graphic design in Paris for 5 years, and I worked for a year in a creative studio, a small creative studio, and it was kind of boring because we had long-lasting projects. So once when a guy called me and asked me if I wanted to join him to create a magazine, he was 16 at that time. He wanted to create a magazine for young people, by young people. I jumped on the occasion, and so I worked for a year on this magazine and on my other studio. And unfortunately, it didn't went out, but I met a lot of interesting people and influencers and really creative ones. And I met Alice, who is founder of the family. She was looking for a new graphic designer, so I met her. And at that time, I didn't know anything about startups. I didn't know what was an entrepreneur, and I didn't know how to create a website or something like that. But what I created for the magazine was kind of similar to the family's vibe. So that's how I got in. And I have several parts in my job here. As you may have noticed, the family's identity is really an important matter, especially for Alice, the founder. And one of my jobs is to be responsible for this visual identity. So you can have a look at the website, you can have a look at Instagram, the design here. We paint the wall also. We do a lot of different things. My goal is to make this visual identity really coherent, unforgettable, and constantly evolving. I also create visual identities for some companies that we launch with entrepreneurs, as Kimono. You have one little showroom here, so I work on Kimono, and I will tell you about that later. I also work on special projects like Gold Up that happen here. I will talk to you about that later too, or Diaspora that happen here. And we also help entrepreneurs. So one of my missions is to help them find their visual identity, maybe get a brief for a freelancer. And during all the years that I spent in the family, we came up with a method, and that's the method I'm going to present you tonight. To start, for us, what is swag? Swag is about being the real you. It's not only aesthetic. It's about reflecting your values, and you can have this swag in every level of your company. If you create a company, you will have swag on your logo, on your tone of voice, the way you decide to present your company to the world. It's being authentic. Swag is about meaning. For us, the design is never free of signification. What is meaningful becomes beautiful because you link the content to the form. It's never for free. It creates coherence, and it helps people understanding the real story behind the design. Swag is about radicality. When I do office hours with entrepreneurs, they often don't understand why design is really important, especially at the beginning. And I often recommend that one of the founders, often there are 2, 3, 4, is responsible for the design. Because if you keep asking your co-founder about design, doing democratic votes about design, you won't move forward. Radicality is moving forward, is making choices, and if you have one person responsible for design, you'll be able to move forward, and everyone is supposed to trust him. Of course, everyone should have his opinion on the design of his company, but just one person makes a choice for everyone. Surprise. That's something we do a lot at the family. Surprise is being able to stand out from the crowd. It's making your product memorable. It's what people will remember of you when they go on your product. Often our founders at the family create really innovative designs, but they are really boring on their visual identity. Today, one of my big battles is to make people be bold and do different things from what the other friends in startup world do. Everything is really flat today, and I want people to be really innovative in the design too. Care. Care is one of our big values at the family. Caring is making your user feeling good when they're on your product. It's about UX, but it's also about visual identity. Usually when you create a product, you have a target, so you need to care about what they feel when they use your product. And if you are doing a big mass market product, you won't have a really underground hipster visual identity. It's not coherent. So caring is being user-friendly and accessible. Aesthetic. Of course, aesthetic is important. Aesthetic is about having good inspiration, having references. It's not about following the trend. And aesthetic is also really subjective. It's kind of linked to the radicality. It's about being you and feeling at ease with what you create, and not expecting a judgment from another person. And evolution. Evolution is really important, especially in the startup world, because when we create something, maybe 6 months or 2 years later, it won't be relevant. So I really tell every founders at the families that they need to demystify design. If they start something at some point, they need to be bold, because maybe in 3 months their product will completely change and the design won't be relevant anymore. So try new stuff, be bold, and maybe if it's not working, you can change a little bit later. And if you're not Uber, usually they're not Uber, you can change, nobody will notice. So it's part of the life of your startup to evolve, so evolve with it. Also, when I design stuff for the family, I have 40 colleagues that work with my templates, and they usually don't respect at all what I create, but it's also part of the company and the life of the company. So each person that work a little bit on the design and on the slides or event banner or stuff like that is moving a little bit the design, but it's good and it's normal, and we need to accept that. So concretely, I know there is a lot of designer tonight, but I will tell again what is visual identity. Basically, it's brand guidelines. So you have the logo, you have colors, you have font, you have a website, where your website is the window to the world. On that website, we'll have a lot of images, maybe illustration, photos. Every choice you make will reflect your visual identity, so you need to be able to justify every choice you make for the visual identity. And you have also what you decided for your brand guidelines and your website on all the elements that you create, so maybe Instagram, your mail, your slides when you do a presentation, etc. It's really important to be extremely coherent whenever you create an image. So this is our swag process. So I use this swag process from me when I create visual identities for companies, but I also help entrepreneurs to be autonomous, so they understand. They understand this process and maybe replicate it in their company. You have several steps. So it's first the swag doc. So it's a form that we created. Then the mood board, and then how to execute it. So you have the link to our swag doc. So it's bit.ly/swag form. And this form is big time for the entrepreneurs, because usually when they come to us, they don't know how to start to work on their visual identity. And it's quite the beginning of the adventure for them. So it's a time for them to sit down and talk about their values and about their mission and why they're doing what they do and how they're gonna represent that visually. So 4 big parts. Some question about the founders, who does what. It's really important to set up the role of the founder of the company. What is the specialty of everyone, how they met, what they did before, stuff like that. Then the values, what do they believe in, why did they start to work on the same project together, when did they meet, and some question about the product. It's really important for me because I work with a lot of tech guys and I need a special time to understand what they do, so they really need to describe properly the product so the designer after really understand it. And then Chinese portrait. So the Chinese portrait is my favorite part because it's a time when they start to think about a visual image of what could be their startups. Usually, when they come to me, they have filled this doc, and they often go wrong on this part of the doc because they think of what if I was a dish, what if I were a film, a movie, a song, a city or something like that. So, but I want to know what if your startup was a dish, what would it be? And that's a complete different thing. Imagine you create a social app where people gather to talk about product design, and now you need to think about what plate would it be. So I'm gonna think, okay, I like people to gather, so maybe sushi. I imagine a boat with a lot of sushi, a lot of colors. Okay, so my plate would be sushi, and that's how I try to make them think about visual image at that point. We take a lot of time to think about the values because it's the heart of the project. At the family, we have 3 main values. It's dare, care, and share. We also have a manifesto. So that's work that they need to do when they start their company, because the values always stay the same. So they remain the same, but the design evolves. But every time they will create something, they will ask themselves if it's really related to their values and what they want to reflect to the world. So when I have these values, usually I go through the swag form and make a list of keywords with these values, with some words related to these values, maybe some part of the Chinese portrait, and I'm going to think about these words and how I I'm gonna transform them into a mood board. That's the next step. So the mood board, maybe you know what it is, but I will repeat it. So it's a selection of images that will reflect the visual direction that you want to take with your company or for the company you're working. So you can have images, logos, photos, screenshot of video clips or anything like that. And when I have a look at your mood board, I need to understand really, really quickly where you want to go. To create this mood board, you need to get inspiration. So inspiration is not copying. Inspiration is getting references to nurture your project. We often say to the entrepreneur to open their eyes, to feed the brain. You have to go to Instagram, maybe Pinterest, but you also can look at magazines, have a look in the streets for graffiti. We have a lot of that here. Maybe go to the museum or have a look at movies or directors that you like, and you take a lot of images, keeping in mind that you'll need to apply that to your company. But being really wide at the beginning is a good thing, and then you'll narrow down. For me, Pinterest is the best tool to do that. It's not especially the best tool to find the images, but it's the best tool to gather the images. When you use a lot of Pinterest, you always come out with the same images. It's kind of tricky, but when you don't use Pinterest, it's a good thing. When you go to an image, you can find other images related. You can pin them and share it to your co-founder or the person you work with. So it's a really good tool, and you can import the images from outside, so that's a good thing too. So when you have the swag form completed, you work on your mood board. Now you need to create a brief. Usually, as a family, when we work with entrepreneurs, we have three kinds of entrepreneurs. The ones that don't have any money at all. It's really the beginning of the beginning. And now, at that time, I need to help them being autonomous and create something that is coherent with them. And usually, they go to the really cheap freelancers that someone that they know recommended, and I tell them not to do that because it won't reveal what they are. So I prefer them to do something not that good aesthetically, but that means something for them and that people will understand. So you have this kind of people. They use the swag dogs, they do the mood board, and they try to do something. Then you have the ones that earn a little bit of money and can afford a freelancer. And usually we help them a lot on creating this mood board because they have no idea of what they want. And if they go straight to the freelancer, usually it can go a bit wrong. So we help them doing the brief, the combination of the swag dog and the mood board. And the third step, usually it's after 1 year or two, the founder have raised money or they got enough money to pay an agency, and at that point we are kind of useless, but we give our opinion to what creates the agency. So on the part of the execution, I will show you some tools that I use and that I recommend to entrepreneurs to be autonomous, because the thing is that when they go to a freelancer, they have the logo, the website, but then they need to replicate or use kind of a kit on Instagram and all the support that they need. So I give them tools to be really autonomous and go quickly when they need to create something. So these are the tools that I use. I go on Google Fonts to search for font. For me, it's the best because it's free. We can use it everywhere, and they look good. For colors, I found this website picula.co. It's more funny than really useful, but you can go on a search bar and type what you want, like even a jungle, and you have a lot of green colors and gradient of color of green and all colors related to the jungle. So if you don't know where to start to find a color, you can go on this website, and it's a good start. For the creation, I work a lot on Illustrator, but for someone that is not used to Illustrator, it can be hard. Photoshop is kind of the same, but easier. So sometimes we recommend the easy way. I'm not really a fan of that, but you can go on Logojoy or known projects to take something like a small pictogram that you're gonna improve or change a little bit, add colors to start to create your visual identity. After that, when you have the logos, the fonts, the colors, you need to create a website. So if you work with developers now, you can create your mockups on Sketch. I do all my mockups on Illustrator because I didn't take the time to learn Sketch, but Sketch is better. You can go on Wix when you don't have developers. That's something we do a lot. We create websites in 3 days on Wix. It's really, really easy. Before that, we were working on Squarespace, but Wix is now easier. And for the people that want to create an e-commerce business, Shopify is the best. To create slides, you can go on Canvas. I know it's a good tool. And if you want to edit photos, of course, Photoshop. And if you need images, it's better to say that you should take free, I don't know how to say it, stock photos instead of Pinterest photos. So Unsplash is a good one, and if you want to pay, sometimes we use Shutterstock. So now that you have all the tools, I will show you some work that I've done at the family, even the families. The families is very special visual identity, especially in the startup world. When I came to the website for the first time, I didn't know anything about startup, but I didn't understand anything because the website was really, really mysterious at that time. It was not the one that is here now. It was starting in the sky, and you were scrolling, going down to a fairy island with big precious stones, and then you go down in the sea, under the sea, with dinosaurs and cats that were dancing. So that's something that I like. Some people dislike it. We are okay with that, but the really good point of this visual identity is that everyone remember. When they start the family 6 years ago, it was Alice's, so Alice is the founder, Alice's sister that work on the logo. She's an artist. She's now based in LA, and at that time, they were thinking about a logo that could be like a precious decoration that you can put on the wall, like an emblem. And the idea was to represent the phoenix, because you know the phoenix, it dies and live again and dies and live again, and that's the life of a startup. They wanted something precious, so you can find the kind of a shape of a diamond, and we changed a little bit the logo several months ago, but it's subtle. like not everyone see it, but it kind of will stay in the time, I think. So they didn't do the swag doc at that time because it didn't exist, but we recreated it, and these are some part of it. So the mission of the family is to help people being ambitious. We know that ambition can be taught, that we want to spread our values to other people that want to be entrepreneurs. We have this notion of paid forward that is really important. That's why I'm here tonight talking to you, because we want to share with you what we learned during this 6 year. The values, as I told you, are there, care and share. So every time I create something, I ask myself, is it related to these values? For the Chinese portrait, it's really, really linked to Alice's taste, but it works. So she's a big fan of Wes Anderson. So that's why we usually use symmetry on all our composition in the images. She listens a lot of rap music, hip-hop music. So when we come to the office, we always have loud music, especially in Paris. So that's something that influence our way of creating things. And for the book, it's Rule for Radicals, which is a really entrepreneurial book, the intellectual part of the family. So if we had to choose some keywords, you would have Art Deco, which is an art movement that happened in the 20 or 30. We like a lot the collage, because when you go on the website, you have a lot of collage, because we like the fact to mix different references, to mix the ancient and the new. That's something that we do all the time. We like the Egyptian vibe, also the Mexican one, especially here. So we try to manage to make everything work together. So here, that would be our Mudball. It's really eclectic. You have movies, you have animated movies, some Art Deco illustration, and here is some part of our visual identity. You can have a look at the website. We changed it a bit 4 months ago, and we tried to improve our Instagram account also. So we were making a lot of effort on it to make it coherent, and that people, when they come to the office, feel the same vibe that on the website, on Instagram, etc. This is the Family Diary is a book that we created that tells the story of the family. Alice wrote it like a diary by hand, and I created illustration. So that's the kind of project that we like to do, that reflects really what we do and what we want to say. So then, Kimono. Kimono is one of the best projects I did at the family. It was really fun, and Olivier came to the family. He had no idea of what he wanted to do, but he wanted to work with the family. So they had a long chat with Alice and decided to create a service for entrepreneurs to create the best clothes, personal, customized clothes for their employee. Because one of the most painful points for entrepreneurs when they wanted to get customized t-shirt, it was the quality was bad, it wasn't following the trend at all, and Olivier had a really good friend that had a factory specialized in this field. So we started to work on this project together. We decided the name of the company together. So I was part of the creation from the beginning. It's a special project, so the families is more implicated than in the other startup. So a bit about Olivier. He's really enthusiastic, really joyful. He's ambitious, really brave, and he wants to go really well with his company. It started 2 years or 3 years ago, and now they are really, I guess they are 40 or something like that, and they are all the same age, all young, they all like to party a lot, and we need to reflect that all the time in the visual identity. So for the values, it was about joy, it was about ambition, and as we decide to call it Kimono, because of the idea that we wanted employees to feel proud of what they were, that they want to go on the street with the name of their company on their t-shirt. The notion of pride and being humble and well, yeah, the feeling of belonging. It was related for us to the samurai and the Japanese vibe. So we took this name Kimono, and we tried to reflect these values on the visual identity. So for the keywords, it was about Japanese systems. We wanted fresh color, fluo colors. We wanted to be a bit bold, and we wanted to have a link to the family's identity, because the family is really implicated in this company. So people, when they see kimonos, they don't know exactly how, but they know that there is a link to the family. So that was my mood board. I like the fact that the blue was quite deep but bright also. We had some stamps. We had the big bold fonts and a bit of jungle and illustration with tiger. And that's how it was when we launched it. So now they are moving forward. So they hired an agency to work on it, but we created at the same time the showroom in the family's office in Paris. We launched it in the street. We created funny posters that we glued in the street, and we worked on the website. It was quite funny because nobody knows about Kimono. We had to launch it and create a website, but we didn't have any backshot, any closest pictures. So we created, we customized t-shirts and sweatshirts that we brought to the entrepreneurs that we love, and took a picture of them to put it on the website. So it was quite fake it until you make it, but they still do that. And you can check the posters that was on the website at the beginning. So all the process was quite cool, and today they are doing really well. So it's nice to see that when you're a designer. And to finish, I would like to talk to you about Gold Up. Gold Up is a special project. It was launched here in Berlin. At that time, Marine was working on it. It's a special program for women who wants to build business online. The name of Gold Up, it's a joke, with hold up and gold, because we wanted it to be precious and a bit bold. That's how values empowerment, fulfillment, but also humor and joy. We wanted the woman to feel at ease when coming to the program and have this idea of belonging. The idea is to gather these women to create a community, so when the program is over, they can still meet each other and talk to each other. So the idea of community of women moving forward together is really important. For me, the keywords were money, of course, because they're here to make money, as a need to feel at ease with the idea of making money. Creation, achievement. We wanted a really funny visual identity. And I had in mind this idea of road trip, like Thelma and Louise road trip, like women going in the desert to explore. So that was our references, and that was my mood board. So it was gold, it was pink, it was fun, and I liked the. I don't know if you had that in Germany or where you come from, but in France we had this TV show called The Nanny, and the grandma was quite a character, and we wanted to implicate her in a way or another in this program. So this is on the left. You have the website. If you go on the website, you can see the grandma somewhere a bit hidden, so you could find her. We imagine the woman going to a secret castle in a canyon. That was the story in our mind. We now have launched Gold Up in Paris, so we created decor for that because we had more women coming to this event, so we took a step bigger to the decoration, and we created images to launch it on Instagram. Then you can check also. And if you want to apply to Gold Up, there are going to be other stations here in Berlin and Paris. So it's good for me.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions? I can pass along the mic if you want to ask anything. Sure.
Hi.
Hi.
When you were talking about the Chinese portrait assignment you give to the founder,
Yeah.
you said that usually they come back with a wrong answer.
Yeah.
Have you tried to ask them or give the assignment in a different way? And what was the process there?
Yeah, usually I take the Chinese portrait and we do it together. So I make them talk a lot, and we try to find link between who they are, what they want to do, and for example, several weeks ago, a guy who creates e-bikes, like electric bikes, came to me and didn't answer to any question of the Chinese portrait, so we did it together. So he is coming from Morocco, living in Barcelona. He wants to do something different from what we see now in the e-bikes industry, something colorful, unisex, not too manly. So we talked a lot about this idea, and so we came up to what was it? I think it was something healthy or Pokeball. It was something healthy because when you take a bike, obviously you're doing sport, and he wanted something colorful, bright, and Pokeball was the right answer to that. So usually we just go through the Chinese portrait together, and I explain them what is their taste and what should be good for their startup.
So thanks for your presentation. You talked a lot about visual identity, creativity, being bold, but what happens when it comes to, for example, the tech industry, and you have to design apps, for example? So how does creativity match user interface and user experience? Is there anything different in your process? Is there anything that you have to keep in mind? Especially here in Berlin, a lot of people deal with tech, so it'd be interesting to hear your opinion on that.
I know that it's really different for tech people, but if it's not in the UI or in the UX, it can be on your other way of communicating. and maybe this time you could be another color than blue, like everyone is blue, maybe you can try another color. It's just you need to find the right amount of boldness when you create something, but the process remains the same. When you choose images for your website, maybe don't choose the same that someone who's doing exactly the same thing in your field. The idea of being bold is to stand out from the crowd, to be different, so we'll remember you. So maybe any choice in the font or in the color on your illustration, a pictogram, could be a bit bold.
There was somebody here. No?
So thank you very much. It was very interesting. I'm a graphic designer as well. So I am interested to hear from your side how you see a bit like of the culture part of design. Because for example, I come from Ecuador, so there we have also a lot of colors. We use a lot of energy somehow. And when I came here to Germany, of course, everything's super clean. And so I would just like to hear your perspective as a French designer who comes to another country to see like the cultural of design. If you can just tell me your opinion about that.
Yeah, but you can see that when we French comes to Berlin, we still do our really colorful and crazy design. I guess you need to adapt a bit to the people you're working with, but it's your duty to help them having colors and your own references. So you nurture your project with your references from the country you come, and you need to find the right balance between adapting to the German world and using your references and inspiration, and you don't have to push it away to adapt. I think it's really important to keep your own vibe and bring it to the people you work with. That's how I work, and sometimes it doesn't work with the project you're in, and you need to lower down the craziness of your of your style, but it's important that each time you propose something that you really like and correspond to what you have in mind. Yeah.
We can do one more if anybody wants to ask anything. Okay, there we go.
Hello,
Hi.
my name's Rizwan. I work as a product manager, so I get to work with a lot of designers every now and then. And one of the struggles that I have, because I'm not a designer, is how do you critique a design? So what sort of a feedback should I give? Because when a designer asks me, is this good? It's like, yeah, but something's missing. But that's not very constructive. So let's say in terms of 2-3 points that you generally look at when you look at a design and you feel like it's good or not, what would be those 2-3 points?
Okay, it's a bit different for me because I'm a designer, so I know what's not working, but you need to ask yourself you need to check all the stuff, like is it the color, is it the font, is it the images, is it the composition, and if you don't find what is wrong, maybe go check the other ones, how they do it on another startup, even if it's not really the same product. Go check inspiration and come back with another image or something that could be applied to what you want to do. If you can't express this, maybe go find an images or something that look good for you and represent what you want to do. I think that's the best way to do it.
Cool. Thanks a lot, and thanks a lot, guys, for all the wonderful questions.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we have a bit of a different angle for the next talk. We're going to talk about product design, and for that we have really the best person to give us sort of a step-to-step guide on how to go about it, we have the director of product design from Delivery Hero here at the family. So please give a warm applause for Skali.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me here. One of the questions that appear as the last one I'm planning to actually answer today when it comes to the product design. So Irina already gave introduction. I'm leading a team of 12 currently, soon to be 24, of product designers that are responsible for 4 different brands. It's Foodpanda, Foodora, Pizza Online, and Online Pizza. We are present in Canada, in Europe, and Southeast Asia. So that's about me. And since Irina also stole one question from me, I wanted to get to know you guys better, to understand better what crowd do we have today. So I know we have a couple of designers who are product designers. Hands up, product designers. Or UX designers, UI designers, working on interfaces. Okay. Well, that's quite a lot. Brand designers, marketing designers, visual designers. Okay. Product owners or product people, product specialists. Okay. And who else do we have in the crowd today? Project managers? Engineers? Okay. Then let's talk about expectations. Why are you here today? I want to learn. I prepare post-its because I'm a designer, so I always work with post-its. And one thing that I will be trying to talk today to you is about prototyping as well. So I prototype my presentation, but I didn't confront with the audience. So here I'm gonna do a quick user testing, and I want to learn a bit about your expectations towards this presentation to make sure that I answer the right questions. So why are you here today? I would like to start actually with one nice quote, what I really like about the product design. So design is not the product of what the designers produce. Design is a process that designers facilitate. That's why we're today talking about the product design process. To touch on one of the questions, what actually is a product designer, what is the role? So product designers are designers that are end-to-end designers in a cross-functional teams and the tech and development teams, that their responsibility is to figure it out what are the problems of the users, what are the business needs, and how to combine both business and user needs and pain points and come up with the solution to both. So basically those are designers that the design interface, solve the user problems, solve the business problems, how we treat product designers at Delivery Hero is by having them, understanding them as end-to-end designers. So they come very early and they leave very, very late in terms of the process. Does it answer the question? Partly, at least. Okay, it does. Okay. So exactly, about the design roles, I want to give you a bit of overview because the process is important. So designers facilitate a process, and this is the most important thing, not the product itself that they produce. The product that's supposed to be produced by entire team, cross-functional team. So to touch on the design roles, I want to give you a quick overview how we understand the product designers. We identify 3x3 framework. With the core product design skills, which is problem solving UX, which is validation, and which is visuals. So those are the hard skills of the designer, of a product designer, to set him up or her for success. Then there are soft skills, and considering that designers need to facilitate design process and encourage entire cross-functional team to do the same. Communication, collaboration, and taking initiatives are 3 additional skills that our designers are supposed to be equipped. And the last batch of skills or of where we focus, it's impact, visibility, and values. So if every product designer is supposed to have a bit of business understanding and user centricity, so core 2 values, should aim to drive the impact and should bring visibility to all of the design actions to actually spread this user-centric culture. So how we organize this at Delivery Hero, we have a product designers that we call them generalists because they support end-to-end design process. And we have a team of specialists that are also coming from a design background that come on a role plug and play. Those are a UX researcher, UI designer, UX writer, product analyst, and design system engineer or UI engineer. So this one works with developers, with product owners, in the cross-functional teams day to day. Everyone here comes when there is need of additional resources. Before I draw you a bit of a design process, how we do it at Delivery Hero, I want to set some sort of values or principles that I really believe that every product design process should follow. So one of the first things, it's a team sport. So you need to collaborate, and collaborate. It's really important that as a product designer, you involve everyone in the process. You involve engineers, product owners, and you try to solve the problems as a team and not as an individual designer. And why it's that? It's probably most of you know this graph already, as we are building products that are complex. They need to represent business needs, user needs, and technical feasibility. You alone as a product designer, you are not able to do it. So in collaboration with other functions, you are much more likely to actually succeed. So this is where developers, product designer, or UX designers, and product manager or business leads come in place. And one of the important things that a product designer should lead as well is shared understanding. So we value shared understanding more over the shared documents. I think we all went in the same spot one or more times when everyone imagines something else and we ask, are you aligned? Yes, we are aligned, but everyone thinks about something else. So when you start working actually together, when you go with the entire team to the whiteboard and you start expressing and having conversation and involving users, and you draw the things that you're thinking about with the entire team, then you realize that you are not aligned. And then you start figuring out, but how we can be actually aligned, or how we can come up with, how we can leverage each of our ideas and come up with something better. And this is why the collaboration it's important. The second thing is ask questions. It's also second important principle of a product designers. They should keep asking questions. That's why I started also my presentation with asking you what you actually want to learn today. So all of the questions starting not open questions, so starting with what, why, when, how, and digging deeper and challenging each other's, challenging your product owners, challenging engineers, and asking questions. How many of you know 5 whys technique? Okay, then to quickly explain, it's a technique that you keep asking the same questions over and over again until you dig deep enough to actually get the answer. So as an example, it could be, I failed my exam. And then you ask why I failed my exam. Because I didn't reach the school on time. And then the first assumption that you could make is, oh, you're a lazy student, you didn't go to exam, or you didn't learn. But you then keep digging deeper. What happened? So why you didn't reach your school on time? Because my alarm clock didn't ring. Another assumption that you can make, you just didn't set up your alarm clock, you're a lazy person. Then you start digging deeper, but why your alarm clock didn't ring? It's because batteries run out. Why batteries run out? Because I forgot to buy, I didn't have a reminder. And then you know that the solution for not failing an exam might be not like learn more, but actually buy batteries to your alarm clock on time. I know that we all have smartphones right now and we set the alarm clocks on the smartphones, but if you forget your charger, for example. So ask a lot of questions. There's through entire process, there is no right or wrong, there is no wrong, there's always right to ask questions. Then the third thing to remember, everything that you will build is supposed to be living feature. So I put one of the creatures, so it might actually end up being a Frankenstein at some point, but it's better to ship to the customers faster, even if it's not perfect, and learn along the way, and consider it being living feature, meaning that it will never be finished. You should iterate over and over again until you reach the point that you are actually happy with it, and then you will figure it out that actually this is not the end. So keep in mind that design process doesn't really have an end. It has its phases, and you need to set up for yourself when you call this project to be done, but designing a product, it can continue, iterate, and deliver better experience. And the last thing, to set some sort of principles, there is unspoken rule that designers are creative creatures, and that the creative process should not be interrupted and should not be planned and should not be visualized. So I'm totally opposed. I really believe that the design work is supposed to be planned in a very similar way as developers work and visualized. This is a picture of our board, actually as it is of today. You can see different functions, you can see tickets, and we work in sprints as well. So we visualize design work. So, and the last one, of course, share early and often. Any point. Share with your stakeholders, share with your audience, share with your team. It touched to the collaboration. So that was about the principles, or like sort of rules of thumb to remember when considering the design process. Many of you are product designers, or you are designers, or you are familiar with this. I will run through it, and if there is anything that is particularly interesting for any of you, then I will ask you to stop me, and then I can dig deeper in the process. So as every process starts with the kickoff, it's important that during the kickoff you involve every possible function that might be necessary throughout the process. So since I'm part of the team that is product design in-house, it's not agency, it's not freelancing, it's not a startup, it's an in-house product design team that works very close with engineers and product owners. This process is based on that experience. It might not be applicable for agencies, or it might be not applicable for working as a freelancer with clients, like one-to-one taken, but it will highlight a few aspects that I strongly believe as a product designer we should cover. So during the kickoff, make sure that you involve everyone, involve your stakeholders, involve marketing team, operations, branding, involve other teams that might be affected by what you're gonna produce. Then do your homework, and by do your homework I mean the homework might be pretty big. I have a few tools listed here and a few of the examples what it might mean to actually do the homework. Check existing documents, check do the benchmark, analyze what are the business objectives, if we have any data about the user already, if it's qualitative, if it's quantitative, what information we can get before actually getting into product design process already. So the information that will help us to actually make decisions along the way. Some of the examples here, for example, flowcharts. Create the flowcharts or dig for the flowcharts that you might already have. Understand how the app behaves right now, or how do you imagine it to behave. If you are starting your new application, or if you're an entrepreneur that is only planning to kick off product design process, then analyze competitors, what is their flowchart, and then you will figure it out that there's many cases that you actually didn't consider. So don't go for a happy path, but check all of the edge cases and what happened if you click. So here is an example of from right out from us. What might happen when you click on the cart, and what other access points on the cart you might have. You might actually want to add a voucher, but we need to figure it out. Are you a logged in user or logged out user? Do you have an account or you don't have an account? Do you have any vouchers, or you just want to add a voucher? And visualizing this in that form help us to actually understand what are all the flows that any user can potentially go through. Another thing to consider, personas. You can use proto-persona, so sort of a not real example of the user. You can use a real persona, which is exact one-to-one example of your user. This will help you and guide your decision each time when you ask yourself then what Susan could do, right? And mark things like, so for us, what are the important things are, what are the user goals, what other apps the user might use, what are the habits, how frequent user is, what are the favorite cuisines, and so on. And this might help you to actually make design decisions along the way. Do the benchmark. This is an example how we do the benchmark if we are analyzing features by features. We just use Google Docs, spreadsheets, and we go one by one and analyzing competitors. Do they have it? Do they have in a different placement? Do they have some sort of a different variation of the benchmark? Then we of course also do the visual benchmark when we either examples of solutions or examples of design patterns, and we just collect. This is a couple of examples from mostly from Asian market about category navigation on the restaurant listing page. You might also want to do the story map. So map all potential actions that the user might take. And each of the user story, can be a possible feature. This will help your team to actually visualize the amount of work that needs to be done in a feature form and user stories. Talk with your stakeholders. This is our real stakeholder. It's John. He's our managing director from Taiwan. It's as simple as scheduling a 30-minute call and ask a couple of questions. One of the last questions, what if we could do only one thing that could help Taiwan growing faster than they grow right now, what that would be? And then the answer that we got is improve how we display promotions. Our growth is driven by promotions. And by understanding the local teams, local markets, and local MDs, it also shows like the priorities and how a product designer can contribute to actually growth of the company. And of course, talk with the users. Here's a picture of one of our users done in testing in Kuala Lumpur to understand, which is, by the way, touching the same topic, not enough visibility of promotions. And hearing this directly from the user is very powerful tool. You can show it to your management, you can show to your colleagues that doubt in your solution. This will help you also with prioritizing and making design decisions. And the last tool from this initial phase, it's empathy map. It also will help you to empathize with the users and understand what are the things that drive them. So what they say, what they do, what they hear, what they feel, what frustrates them, what are their pains, and what are their gains. So what success means for them. Then after you collected all this big bunch of information, so if any of you knows double diamond, this is like first time when the diamond goes. Now you need to define the problem, so you need to narrow down the diamond. And you need to figure it out. What is the problem, both from user perspective and from the business perspective. So try to understand what is the pain point of the user, but also where the business wants to go and how both can meet along the way. Some of the tools to help you doing this, it's how might we nodes. Who knows how might we nodes? Okay, so I will quickly explain. Instead of writing down all of the problems, for example, checkout for new users doesn't work. Or our order tracking page doesn't show precise time. So try to rephrase those problems into positive questions and kind of open-end questions. How might we improve checkout for new users? How might we display more relevant time on the order tracking page? How might we encourage more users to buy the Kimono store t-shirts? And this will guide you a bit better through ideation stage later on. So once you come up with the how might we nodes, it's good also to come up with the hypothesis. So this is the framework for hypothesis that we quite often use. Going away from requirements and what is told by the business that we should do, we try to rephrase it like, what are the things that we believe? So I believe we will achieve this business impact if this user segment attain this benefit with this solution. So this highlights that you actually don't know because you believe. So this is an assumption, and you need to validate assumption before you release to your entire market. Then you are being very specific about the user. So it's not what CEO thinks or what your product owner told you or what your colleague designer thinks. It's about the users and their benefits. And then there is a solution that you come up with. And then, of course, once you do it, you need to remember to define the success. So how you will know that you achieve that the solution that you come up with is working. You need to know your KPIs. You need to know your success metric. And I strongly encourage all of the product designers to actually be the driver for defining the KPI metrics. In the companies that are maybe less mature than Delivery Hero, in the startups, it's quite often the step that is omitted. So many companies don't have a tracking or the tracking is not reliable. But it's very important still to define the success. So either prioritize adding tracking to your product over adding new feature, or try to simplify what are the metrics that you would like to measure, but know what the success means for you. So is the success increasing conversion? Is the success smaller bounce rate? Is the higher engagement or more product sold? Is more people subscribing to your email list? It's any other success metric. And of course, the phase that we cannot forget, ideate. It's again, we're entering doing yoga here. Second part of the diamond, you're so you gather all the information that is available. You talk with your users, you did personas, you did the flows, you talk with the stakeholders, you collected documentation, and you understand what is the problem. You figure it out what is the problem, and now how to solve the problem. So you go to the ideate phase, which again, it's going wild. And there are a few methods to go wild, and touching on the values that I mentioned before, collaboration. So I strongly encourage you to actually, instead of ideate in your corner or by your desk alone, I really encourage you to do it in a collaborative way. So do the design studio, do the crazy aids with your developers, do opposite thinking, on analogy thinking. I will leave you with those vague terms to figure it out by yourself. But there is many tools, many methodologies that you can apply as a designer to your cross-functional teams, that you can involve everyone to actually brainstorm and come up with ideas for your problems. So don't do it alone, do it in the team. And when it comes to, so this is the moment when you think big, but it's important to start small as well. So as I was doing yoga before, think big. It's called divergent method. It's create enough base material to actually be able to reach the great results. And this is the moment where we use yes and. But there is a moment where you need to go to the opposite side, and you need to start small. So convergent method. Make decision, prioritize, and narrow down. This is the moment when you, in your conversations with the teams, you can start using yes, but. And also as your experience in the area as an engineer, product owner, or developer rises, then more often you're gonna find yourself in this area, because you will know what are the things that are working or what are not working. So talking about starting small and MVPs, who has a $10, 10 euros? 10 euros, anyone? Come on, put your money out. No, 10, I'm not that, they don't pay that well, just kidding. So I just want to really visualize what it means to actually think big but start small. So let's say this is what you want to achieve. How are you going to deliver it? So I have a question for you. If you're going to deliver it that way, can you use it? I'm going to deliver first half of it. So I just want to show you that actually how important is the way of like starting small and delivering piece by piece. So not to worry you, I can deliver the first part back to the owner. Actually, I would probably start with the smaller part, so 39 euros. And another 2 euros. At the end, I delivered 10, but in a smaller chunks. If I would do this, he would not be able to use it. So I start small. I'm 10 euros less. And this visualize what it means actually to start small. Right? If you would think like, okay, I need to draw a Mona Lisa and she needs to look like this. Then along the way, like after 1 month or 1 year, I don't know how good you are with drawing, you would end up probably somewhere here. You would need to be like very good with estimation to deliver on time, with this precision level of precision in the delivery. But if you start small, like, okay, I need to like deliver a woman in a pastoral setting. And then you start small. You start with a very rough drawing. Then you figure it out, okay, what is the next thing that I can do to actually reach that goal, but still like deliver already the value first. So you go that way along the way. Don't go this way. Then, of course, prototype. As a designers, you already know importance of prototype. How many of you know difference between low fidelity and high fidelity? Is it something that I should explain? No. Okay. Yes. Okay. So when it comes to the prototypes, you can low fidelity allows you to actually iterate faster and deliver faster and gather feedback faster. If you have really like prototypes in the wireframe form or even like in a paper, you can start prototyping. The lowest fidelity is like you grab a pencil and a piece of paper and you start prototyping on paper. And you can already test with your users paper prototype. We did it many of times, testing paper prototype, because it's as simple as just drawing and then iterating along the way until we have a clear idea that, okay, this might actually work, we can invest more time in designing it. So paper prototypes are the low fidelity prototypes and allow you to iterate faster and test with the users faster. More complex prototypes like wireframes or interface designs or interactive prototypes, it require much more time. So as you go through product design process, start small, start with the pen and paper, and then as you learn, as you gain confidence along the way, talking with the users, talking with your team, then invest time in the wireframes or sketch wireframes or interface or prototypes, interactive prototypes. One thing that in many startups is also omitted is review. And I find it very worrying. It's the same way as you could imagine when the developers have their code review and then suddenly there is nobody to review their code. And you just ship it as it is. So there is a design review. We do it every Tuesday. It's mandatory part of our product design process. I just had design review right before I came here. And designers from my team were showing their work in progress. And this is the moment where the team gathers feedback and tries to improve the solutions. So 2 brains is better than 1, and 12 brains is not always better than the 1, but and I screenshotted a piece of the framework for the design review that we started using recently to kind of guide us better through how to avoid opinion-based feedback, how to like not end up in the conversations, but I don't like it. So I think it's a common problem among designers, how to talk with your stakeholders, with your teams, or with other designers, and not to put yourself in a corner because you cannot argue. It's like, I don't like blue. So we have a framework. You need to figure it out for yourself. What are important things for you? Certain things will definitely stay as they are. I attached the document as a shareable asset at the end of the presentation, so you can just click the link if the presentation will be shared. Will the presentation be shared? Presentation? Irina, will the presentation be shared with the audience? Yes. Then you can click the links. And what our framework includes, so it has a couple of sections. It has a problem and solution. So trying to understand what is the user problem, is the solution solving it, can we solve it better, what patterns it's using, can we have different patterns that work better, what is the information architecture, how to make information architecture better, is the action clear, is it only one action? And you keep asking those questions that actually keep driving your design review to the actually gathering the constructive feedback. Validate, so because slides are actually in a chronological or one after another order. Design process is not always that linear. You might actually input validate at different stage because you're gonna be validating the prototypes, you're gonna be validate pen and paper prototypes or more complex prototypes, or even talking with the users about the ideas. It's already validation. So don't treat it as the only moment when you're supposed to validate. Validation is good at any point. Of course, adjust the method of validation to the phase that you're in. So don't run 100 user session when you are trying to figure it out if you should use black or dark gray color for your text. So adjust the method. Because at the end, you never know how users use your product, and you would be surprised. And as you were surprised, then the loop continues, or the loop begins. Try to iterate what you just learned. Try to prototype again with the outcomes of the user testing, and validate again. Then there is a phase of visuals. It's for our company, we have a design system, so it's a bit easier for designers to apply. What I want to, as a message here today, show you that actually until this point, we didn't even start really talking about visuals. So we know the direction of the product. It's already set how the visuals look like. And until we fix the problem or until we find the solution, we don't even think that much about the visuals. And the handoff process. So the message is here: don't throw things over the fence at any point together with the handoff. Make sure that you work side by side with your engineers when doing the handoff. We do during the implementation phase, we do the design QA, and we sit directly like next to our engineers, trying to figure it out if there are any issues that we should spot before actually making going with the product live. And after it's live, going back to the success metrics, you at earlier stage you define what the success would mean for you. Now it's your time to check if actually you achieve the success, if you move the needle a bit. So make sure that you measure. We do A/B testing quite often, or we do the stage rollout. We compare the variants shipping to the same amount of users, but make sure that you measure if you're actually solving problem, not only in a qualitative way, talking with the users, but in a quantitative way by the metrics. And once you have the metrics, analyze. It's good if you have in your team product analysts that can help you on that phase. If not, then as a product designer, get yourself a Google Analytics account or any Hotjar or any other tool that will help you with analyzing and processing the data that you get. So that was the design process. How we do it at Delivery Hero. I attached 3 other frameworks that most of you most likely know, and I just want to show you, like, Irina didn't want me to talk about design thinking, but at the end, like, many of the components of our design process is taken directly from design thinking or service design or any like user-centric oriented process. So that's it when it comes to my presentation. Now I will try to tackle some of the questions if I didn't, so I will confront. How do you know what users want without talking with the users? Or without, if you don't want to talk with the users, there are tools that help you gather their feedback. So by talking, I mean face-to-face talking, but we can send the service that will help you gather inputs. Or you can use the tools like Hotjar that will record the sessions. The confidential data will be covered, so you will not see any any bank account or any names or anything that would be very confidential for the user. But you don't need to talk to the users to actually observe and make some assumptions about their behavior. I strongly advise talking actually to the users, but if you really want to avoid it, then there are ways to figure it out their behavior without directly talking with them and already getting some insights. Does it answer the question that somebody asked before? Okay. There was also a question about the company culture at the Delivery Hero. Did this presentation help a bit with overviewing the company culture? Is there anything that I should add? Okay, thank you. There was also a question about client expectations. If there is a mismatch of the client expectations, how to deal with those situations. So as I talk about stakeholder interviews, I would say gather the input from the clients as early as possible. Try to make them, try to force them to make a mood boards by themselves. Like ask them, if your brand, so we were talking before about the Chinese picture, but you can use similar technique, which is, if your brand would be a person, what kind of person it would be? Like what movies it would like, what places it would go. And then it will help you get a feeling, what are their expectations? And then ask them up front, what are your expectations? What do you want to see? What the good product means for you? What are your top 3 products that you're using? Why do you like them? And by interviewing your stakeholders or interviewing your clients, you actually get a better sense of what they might actually expect. And if the situation, if that doesn't help and the expectations are still different, then I would say try to collaborate. Try to involve them in the design process, sure early, sure often. Always add the disclaimers that this is not the final product, because they will freak out. So in our wireframes we use blue. For most of our markets we are pink. And still we have as stakeholders, when they see blue, it's like, are we turning to blue? So make a disclaimer that this is not the final product. Try to avoid visuals when you want to solve problems, and gather the feedback as early as possible. Then you can go back on the right track towards the expectations. When to apply the right method? Do we have an owner of this question? What methods did you refer to?
Like specific methodologies. I was thinking more like, for example, when you have to gather some, so when you did some user interviews and you have some data, what you could make sense of all the messages you compile.
Can you give me an example?
That's an example.
Okay, that's an example. Okay, I will work with what I have. How to apply the right methodologies when you have a big pile of information and research, and how to make sense of it.
Yes. So you have some video recordings, right?
Okay. Then, so how, first it starts even before, so we prepare a script and we figure it out, what are the things that we want to learn. And then we ask the users the same question. So if we run the test with 7 users or with 10 users, then we have a step-by-step either prototypes with the script, or we have questions written down that we want to ask. And this helps us to actually make sense out of it, because we are already searching for something specific. Then after this, we are reviewing, we are doing a debriefing. Usually after each session, we have a quick session with the post-its. What are the top 3 things that we noticed about, let's say, if it was usability testing? And that helps us categorize, not to like get drowned in amount of information. Once we review the videos, when we go through the videos, then we also search for the patterns. Like, are the users talking about the same things over and over again, maybe in a different words? And then we try to categorize. So is it about deals and promotions? Is it about location? Is it about visuals? Is it about I don't understand the language? And try to put it into the brackets, into the buckets. Does it help?
And what do you use to present this data to your stakeholders?
So we try to involve stakeholders in the process along the way. So sometimes we involve them in the user testing and they travel with us to the local markets. If that's not the case, then we also do the user research with the observer rooms. When somebody who is moderating the testing, it's streaming live to the observer room, and then we make sure that we have stakeholders visiting minimum one session, because it's really powerful tool to see it to hear it directly from the user. So this is how we got buy-in for fixing many issues, and this is also how we got developers excited about certain things, because they see like, oh my god, this is how the users are using our app, we need to fix. And they run out from the observer room, try already fix it. So this is how powerful it can be. So first thing is trying to involve us as early as possible, inviting them to observer room. And when it comes to presentation, we have also weekly meetings. It's like our Friday tech and product beer. And this is the moment when we present the high level findings. And we try to always cut out some videos that maybe are overly explicit or maybe funny in a way, something that will stuck in people's mind. So we try to focus on 3 to 5 topics to show during those presentations, and then we distribute the report with more in-depth findings about this. And then since we follow some sort of adaptation of our own adaptation of Spotify model, we have different teams that are responsible for different areas of the product. So we have checkout, we have ordering and upselling, we have discovery, and if there are like specific things that we figure it out during the testing that are related in any of those teams, then we talk directly with the teams and put there on their board for prioritization.
Can I jump in? Can I according to
sure.
methodologies? We're both Scrum
Mm-hmm.
masters and Scrum product owners.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen from your presentation you mentioned a lot of agile methodologies and a lot of
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Reviews involving the customer, reviews early, inspect and that. Are you using really the complete
Scrum,
or are you working in a sort of an agile environment?
Sort of Scrum. So it really depends from team to team. Some of the teams feel confident doing Scrum and estimation and really like protecting their backlog and what they committed during the sprint. Some of the teams work more with the Kanban and iterate along the way. So we don't have I don't have one answer for it. There, among our teams, there are teams that use both. They use Scrum, they use kind of Scrum, and they use Kanban as well. But all of the teams work in a 2-3 week sprint, and all of the teams do demo and prioritization of their work, and they kind of more or less try to protect the scope of work that they committed. There was one more question. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you work like this as well? I mean, do you have
with the design sprints? Very. Mm-hmm. Very rarely, to be honest. It's a big commitment to work in the 5 days design sprints when you involve entire team into the design sprint. So maybe I explain a bit design sprint. It's a different than agile sprint. It's a 5-day process when you try to tackle what is the problem that you are solving. You try to prototype and you try to figure it out validate with the users within 5 days. So after 5 days, you should have an answer, but the entire team is involved in the process. So unfortunately, we don't do that often. We do it for some of the projects sometimes, and then we usually end up doing not exactly 5-day sprint, but we do 2 when we involve the entire teams, and then the rest is only like part of the team working on the prototypes and validating. So unfortunately we don't have a that time commitment. Okay. Any more questions? There is a question in the back. Yes, I can hear. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the question for all of you, so to make sure that you hear, how do you deal with the disagreement in the team? So we try to, maybe not, we don't try to avoid it, actually. I think confrontation, it's a good thing. This is when you actually are able to be challenged and challenge back somebody and answer the questions. So our challenging is based on, like, are we solving the business and the user needs? It's not based on personal thoughts. So design review process with this framework, like trying to understand what are, and designer coming to design review as well, telling the rest of the team, this is what I want to learn today, this is what I want to gather feedback about. It helps us not to go into very biased or very opinionated designs and conversations. And when we have a disagreement, we try to work it out. So if there are two people or a couple of people that have strongly opposite ideas, there is also this rule that if you're a designer from a specific team, you are the owner of this part, so the final decision, it's up to you. Of course, you need to validate. You need to make sure that whatever you propose, it's grounded. And if you are not able to ground your decisions, then you are not able to make the final decision. But if you are able to justify and ground, then you're gonna be the one who's making the final decision. Does it help?
Thank you. You presented a really holistic skill set of a UX designer, and many activities I so far more thought, okay, it's a PM thing. Mm-hmm. And now you said, okay, the designer has the final say. Mm-hmm. On the design decision. Do you, in practice with this process, ever have conflicts with the role of a product manager?
Mm-hmm. So maybe to clarify, but I consider conflicts on the line designer. If it's a conflict on the line designer product owner within the same team, then they need to figure it out. So they need to ground their decision on both sides, and they need to, several things comes in play. So if the solutions is actually working and if it's validated. If we are on a phase scaling it or experimenting. If it's experimenting, then it's rarely conflicts because it's experiment. We know that we don't know and we just want to learn. So this is the moments when we try to learn, and in those situations I cannot really recall conflicts. So on the line with product designer and product manager, I believe they are, but how we deal with them, by talking. I cannot really recall very extreme situations, and when it comes to role definition, a lot of things that I mention might be traditionally seen as a product owner. If I mention in the presentation, I don't mean that product owner cannot do it. It's again collaboration. So if the team is doing it, then it's great. If designer facilitated it, it's great. If product owner facilitated it, it's amazing as well. As far as the entire team is doing it, then the product design process is fulfilled. There was one more question.
Hi, a little design ops question. How do you keep your design style guide consistent across? You have a lot of designers working on the same or different projects, but you want to keep the design consistent, right? So we, for example, use something like a tool called Abstract. You guys use something else? I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, Abstract, I think it's a very reliable tool right now on the market. I don't think there is anything better. We use sketch libraries as well. On the wireframe, we have wireframe library when designers just drag and drop during the wireframes. On the design level, they drag and drop the design components if there is something that is missing. We have a meeting once every 3 weeks, which we call the Design System Guild. And if there are any questions related to the layout or components that don't exist in our design system, this is the moment that they will gonna be tackled. And design review, so the form that I shared earlier about the design review, it also includes a section that is related, here it's not shown, but it includes section about the design system. Are you using components from the design system? Is there any better component to solve this problem? Do you need to add a component? And how is the spacing? Is the spacing following the design system? Is typography following design system? So design review helps with that, and using the components from our library.
Does anybody have another question?
If I understand correct, then you don't really have the classical PM, right? So you kind of mix PM and UX UI designer into the product designer. So what is the connection between that and like the product owner? Like what is the split?
In terms of responsibilities, maybe the roles are not very strict defined. This is where my area ends and this is where your area starts. We try to work as a team effort. Product owners are the ones who make sure, because designers and I'm gonna do the yoga again. So designers like to go to this phase. They like to ideate, they like to analyze the research and get input from many aspects. So they really tend to go big. Product owners many times help to actually narrow this down. So if the designers have the skill, it's amazing. But usually it's a product owner who's more walking, having a foot on the ground and monitoring that we respect the time, that we work in Agile, so the time is fixed, the team is fixed, the scope is the one that is changing. So this is the area where product owners, but both validation we do in the teams. I have here one of the product owners from post-order team. He traveled with us to Finland to do the testing, and we did it side by side. So it's not only product design responsibility, but it's a team responsibility again. So product owner together with product designer doing the validation.
Okay, to the back. Okay, let's do that last one.
Thanks. Maybe related to the previous question. So who is on the cross-functional team? How many people? Are there stakeholders there? And how do you sync with the development team?
So cross-functional teams vary in size. It might be as small as 3 and as big as 12, extreme cases 14. And it depends on the function or of the team. So usually it's a product designer, product owner, front-end engineer, back-end engineers, mobile, iOS, and Android. And this is the team that's, so they have all of the resources that they need to actually ship, push something through the door and not being very dependent on any other teams. If there is a team that only requires 2 back-end engineers and one product owner, then it might be also a cross-functional team that operates.
Cool. Thank you so much, guys. If you have more questions to ask, just go and approach Skali in front. Thank you so much for the talk.
Thank you as well.
Que la famille.